Welcome to the Sports Science Dudes. I'm your host, Dr. Jose Antonio. Co-hosting with me today is Cassandra Evans. You can find our
Hi.
podcast on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Rumble. Our special guest today is Dr. Jennifer Kurtz. Dr. Kurtz is an assistant prof in the Department of Public Health and Exercise Science at Appalachian State University. She holds a Ph.D. in Kinesiology with a concentration in exercise phys and nutrition from Georgia State University. And both her MS and BS in exercise science are from Georgia College and State University. And I actually had to look that up. I'm thinking, is it Georgia College University, Georgia College and State University, or Georgia State? And apparently it's Georgia College and State University, which is rather confusing. But it is what it is.
Is it in Georgia?
It is in Georgia.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so at least we got that part right. I was like, well, this is a really confusing name for a school. Dr. Kurtz teaches several courses, including ex-phys and nutritional aspects of exercise and sports. In fact, I'm on sabbatical, and Cassie's teaching my sports nutrition course right now, and she's enjoying every minute of it. I am certain. Your research focuses on physiological and nutritional interventions on sports performance, emphasizing nutrient timing, ergogenic aids, and preventive nutrition. So, Dr. Kurtz, Jennifer, welcome to the Sports Science.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate this invite and just being able to have this conversation, and hopefully just really great conversation.
Hey, let's switch a little to sports nutrition, supplements and whatnot. I'll tell you this, Jennifer, when people ask me about supplements, I'll be quite honest, quercetin is not something that ever pops into my head. In fact,
Same.
if someone said, what does it do? What are the doses? I'm like, God, I don't know. So I guess the first question is, I'm sure you're sitting around, I don't know, in the lab or in class, you're like, I think I want to study quercetin. I'm not sure why, but it sounds really fascinating. And you start asking people around and you realize, wow, nobody knows anything about this. So
Right. I still don't know anything about it.
And I guess I think it's an antioxidant, right?
Yeah, it's one of the functions that it could help with. Yeah. So that's
tell the story of how you got to, studying this.
Quite honestly, so one of my own mentors, still just great mentor in my life, Trisha Van Dusseldorp. So I've had some conversations with her when I kind of started my PhD. I was originally at UGA, and I was like, okay, well, who is this person? Like, what type of research she's doing? And then her and I started having conversations, and then she was the one who kind of brought up quercetin. And I was like, what the heck is quercetin? I was like, wait, this sounds fascinating. Like, oh, I just like the word of it. Great. So her and I started having some conversations. She was doing a little bit of work with it with some of her master's students at the time. And that was kind of a supplement that I was like, wait, I kind of want to run with this. Like, it is a part of your plant kind of based diets. Like, it's a plant pigment. It's found in like citrus fruits, like elderberries, red wine. I was like, oh, I like red wine. Great. I want to kind of look at what is in kind of normally what I consume. So, yeah, berries, kale, a bunch of different foods, and onions is another big one. So
I eat a lot of onions. All that other stuff I don't eat. So I'm like,
right, exactly. But you have to have like a lot of onions to kind of get that quercetin effect. And then kind of COVID kind of rolled around and kind of research. This is also kind of when I kind of first started my PhD. And of course, COVID hit, and I was like, great, I still want to continue my research. And thankfully, Trisha was awesome. And I was
you're in Georgia, University of Georgia at the time?
Yep. So I was at University of Georgia, kind of actually started fall 2019. And then I started having conversations with her, kind of wanted to follow her research line or kind of get her mentorship and collaboration. And then I actually switched over to Georgia State, which not many people do in their PhD at all.
Yeah, that's all usually unheard of.
Exactly.
How far into the PhD were you before you switched?
I was only a semester.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah. But it was like, where can I get the best like mentorship? Where can I get collaboration, conversation? Where can I get more plugged into a lab of research that I'm like super passionate, more excited about, which was always sports nutrition, but it's kind of rare to find really strong sports nutrition people in Georgia. And then Trisha was right down the road. So she was awesome.
So she was at Kennesaw.
She was at Kennesaw.
I didn't realize they're like neighbors, those two universities.
Yep. So Georgia State and Kennesaw, they're about 30 minutes from each other.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So that was really great. I talked to kind of people at Georgia State. I'm like, hey, I have this great person I would love to learn from. Is it possible that I can maybe be in her lab while also still being at Georgia State? So that's kind of how the conversation kind of unraveled. And my mentors at Georgia State, they're like, yeah, okay, that works. As long as you're kind of getting that research experience. And really thankful, very unusual, doesn't really happen in the PhD realm.
Yes. So Trisha was your primary advisor?
At the time, technically, like on paper, no, but
But in reality.
Yes.
And that's all that matters, really, to be honest.
Exactly. So she was a big part of my research, kind of like my interests and kind of where I wanted to run with some of my ideas. So yeah, we started having a lot of those conversations with quercetin, and then COVID hit, and I was like, okay, well, now what am I going to do? And I was like, oh, I kind of want to do a review. I want to look into the literature. What the heck does quercetin do? And that's kind of where my quercetin interest kind of came into be. So yeah, during COVID, I was still able to kind of publish a review paper with quercetin at Sports and Exercise, not in a top tier journal, but I still got a publication out of it. So,
And at the time, was there enough there to say, hey, this is the amount you could take where it might do something from an exercise standpoint, or it was just a black box of we don't know?
yeah, typically what I've been finding, so David Neiman, he was actually at App State. He's done a lot of work with quercetin. So he's found some mixed results with quercetin. It really just appears like chronic ingestion, like 500 milligrams per day, seems to be a little bit more beneficial than the short-term doses of just like, hey, I'm just going to take some onions or eat some onions.
Well, and how many onions would you have to eat to get that kind of 500 milligram dose?
That's a great question. That's a great question. I haven't really looked into how many onions you had to eat, but
I eat a lot of onions. So. What about garlic? Is it in garlic?
That food source, I don't know entirely. I mean, it's found in some peppers. Garlic, I'm not entirely sure about that one. So
yeah, I was before you came on, for the last couple of days, I've just been sort of scanning the literature on quercetin because frankly, I don't know anything about it, but it seems like it does a whole host of things. And I was just looking at this list, I copied and pasted it. In addition to antioxidant effects, anti-inflammatory, cardiovascular benefits. I didn't know, does it have it says anti-diabetic effect. Does it affect blood sugar?
So very inconclusive research. Some of that research has been done more in animal models than humans. So I can't really say for sure it helps with blood sugar. More of my focus with quercetin has been more on like the inflammation, kind of oxidative side of things, especially kind of more in the athlete realm.
So what have you found as it applies to athletes? Because I mean, all athletes care about is, will it make me better? That's
exactly. Right. So also athletes, like some of them have asked me, they're like, what the heck is quercetin? Why would I take this supplement in the first place? So right. My kind of focus is like, I'm really interested in like the prolonged effects of like how the prolonged bouts of exercise. So of cycling or running, like how is that going to affect your oxidative and your inflammatory systems? And how can you find the optimal level of inflammation and oxidative stress to still elicit the adaptations? So I first started off with kind of looking at, okay, let's look at a 20-kilometer time trial, which was my dissertation. And I looked at quercetin by itself. I looked at citrulline with it as well to see if there's any sort of like synergistic effects targeting like maybe different or same or different cellular kind of compartments of these. Also looked at citrulline by itself and placebo. So I had 4 main groups. So I wanted to kind of start with, okay, how does this might affect maybe oxygen consumption, average power, respiratory exchange ratio, your rating of perceived exertion. So that's kind of where I started with it. And I also looked at nitric oxide metabolites, so nitrite and nitrate, to maybe see if quercetin could maybe target this cellular pathway. So that was kind of the question my mentor asked. He was like, okay, we'll figure out what pathway quercetin might target and then go like, let's go from there.
And this is 20 km. This is cycling time trial, obviously.
Yep. So this was with all trained athletes. So I had 48 trained athletes in my study.
Wow.
Wait,
Yeah.
And 4 groups. I'm super impressed with that.
wait,
And
guys
4
and,
groups.
guys and girls? Or
It
Was it
was
good?
about 8 females that I had.
so no, this is sort of a pragmatic question because Cassie and I run into this all the time.
Yep.
How do you get that many trained people to do what you want to do without them dropping out?
That's an excellent question. I, of course, had dropouts. So I had a pretty big connection within the cycling community in Atlanta because I used to do a whole bunch of like races. So I met a lot of people through the races. And again, this is just forming conversation and like being in the community and hey, like, and them also kind of trusting me with where I was going with this and me cycling with them. They're like, okay, I guess we'll do this. Like, so
They had the buy-in.
exactly. So it was through a lot of me cycling with the athletes, and then it was a lot of through the word of mouth. And I was honestly surprised that I was able to get 48 athletes, like well-trained, all competed in Cat 1, Cat 2, and even some
Wow.
Cat 3 races. So I was pleasantly surprised and happy with those participants and super grateful for all of them.
Now you
And
compete
you looked
as well.
at, oh,
I'm sorry.
I was just going to ask about the supplementation part, but I want to know what she competed in first.
Yeah. Are you Cat 1, 2, or 3?
Yeah, I
Wow.
was. I don't really race anymore. I kind of shifted more into kind of the ultra running world, whole nother topic, but
So much fun.
Wait, you know what? This is interesting because that's almost backwards. And the reason I say that is the running joke, at least, because my wife used to run track in college, and the running joke is what do you call an injured runner? A cyclist, right?
yeah.
So you've actually gone the other way where you've gone from cycling to running, which is something I never really hear of. I always hear the other way because runners are constantly injured. But you're going into, you say ultra distance running?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah, like
getting
ultra
into that.
marathon.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's kind of an interesting transit. I mean, no, this is a sort of a nice little aside. So I need to know why you did a switch where most people go the other way.
That's an excellent question. So for number one, I dealt with cycling injuries. So
Wow.
I dealt with some like lower back pain, which is now I'm kind of figuring out it's kind of maybe something dealing with the geometry of my bike, something it may be, and like all of the constant like technical trails, it was just destroying my bike or my back and maybe my bike too at the same time. But also when I moved up to Boone, like there were so many trails like close by, and I have a German short-haired pointer, super high energy, and I'm like, okay, starting a
are
new
so
job. I don't
cool.
really have time to go deep into the Pisgah forest, drive hour and a half to ride what I want to ride. Still great trails locally, but I was like, wow, there's so many more great running trails closer. And that's honestly where I met a lot of my community and people. So I started running, and now I'm dealing with some running injuries, but
It's
yeah.
Same. They're never ending. My friend Joe so he did no exercise basically his entire life, like ever. And then when he was in his like mid 50s, while still smoking cigarettes, decided to start like doing like 5Ks, and then eventually now does like ultra marathons. And he's in his late 60s. But very interesting because he talks about too how like he would like literally be smoking cigarettes like in the car at like a race, and then like get out and go do his race and come back. And like I guess one day he just, I don't know, got embarrassed and was like, I think I should quit smoking now. But now he does ultras, like, and he's crazy with it. But I feel like the ultra community is super, super friendly. I don't know as much about the cycling community just because cycling down here in South Florida is absolutely wild. Like the roads are very small. People aren't very mindful of the cyclists, and especially down A1A, which is closer to me, like people get hit all the time. But with the running community and especially the ultra community, I've just found that they are so much friendlier and just nice.
well, that's because
I can agree.
yeah, I mean, everyone, not everyone, but a lot of people in South Florida hate cyclists. Why? Because they hog the road. They hog the
Well,
road.
when they come in their big groups, even as a cyclist, like when I was like cycling by myself, and then all of a sudden you have like 50 of them behind you, it's terrifying. Like, and they yell at you.
That's true. Yeah, they're not when they're in packs, they're not nice. They're not nice.
Right. Yep.
So this is good. Okay, so sorry for the sidebar. I actually
right.
do want to hear more about how you're training for running versus training for cycling, because it is kind of interesting. particularly with like the use of supplements. I know like cyclists are more likely to use creatine than runners because runners are afraid of that weight gain. So, but we can get back to that. But I think you were finishing your point about, was it quercetin and citrulline for your study? Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
4 groups. Okay. Did you do chronic or acute supplementation?
So I did 4 weeks.
Okay.
Yep. So, I mean, it depends on how you define chronic, depends on how you define acute, but
I mean, I would consider 4 weeks chronic. So you had people actually, and I know you said you had some dropouts, but still to end up with 48 subjects, like over a 4-week period is impressive.
yeah,
Exciting.
it wasn't, yeah, it was not easy to do, but I mean, like I said, like I had a lot of great cyclists, like I'm super grateful for them. And a lot of them were my friends. So I was like, hey, make sure you're consuming this. Hey, make sure, hey, you got that supplement today? Like, so, and I was like, hey, if you're going to eat today, if you're going to have your lunch and your dinner, all right, just put this in there. And it was also like a beverage form. So to help maybe increasing the absorption and maybe bioavailability of these two. I was like, hey, it's an orange beverage. Here you go.
Wait, was this a commercially available beverage? The combination?
No. So what my lab and I did kind of at Georgia State is we actually kind of created these supplements with like an orange crystal light, low sugar, no calories in it. So that was our placebo. And then what we did is we ordered bulk of quercetin and citrulline, and then we combined that with the orange flavor. With the
Okay.
orange.
And it's soluble? It's soluble in water?
Yep.
Oh.
Yep. Yep. So they had to consume, like, we gave them a whole bunch of little packets of supplement. It looked like not a great lab, but
I can imagine. I can imagine.
exactly. So, but yeah, they had a whole bunch of these little packets in their bag, and it was like, hey, make sure you consume this. And we would know if they didn't consume it, if like by the end of the 30 days, like we timed it out pretty well. Like, okay, what's the shelf life of these supplements? And they all dissolved right by that end of the 30 days. So, which was great.
And so you found, okay, so after the 4-week intervention, tell the audience, because a lot of people think, oh, a 4-week study, well, that can't take more than a couple months. From the start, how about this? From the start of writing the IRB, submitting it to the time that you had all data collected and when you're ready to write it up, what's that time frame?
So it took a little longer with the IRB. With some universities that you have that struggle.
Wait, what's a little longer so we can like compare notes?
It took about 7 to 8 months for IRB approval.
What?
It was a very long time. Georgia State apparently was not used to this type of, hey, we're creating a supplement and we're going to have athletes take that. They're like, okay, well, what's the safety?
I don't think we've ever had one that long, Cassie. 7
No,
days.
and I was just complaining about mine taking 3 months.
This took a long time. So it taught me a whole lot of patience and persistence because I was like, this is what I want to do.
Okay, so well that actually, well, that's like half of most investigations right there. So
exactly.
So after that you start, and data collection takes how long?
So for us it was we started roughly right around December and we finished right around May.
Oh, that's
So
pretty
did you
good.
do like multiple cycles then of collection?
So we got people in the door, like I got 2-3 new people every week, what it seems
Okay.
like. So we were in, like I got subjects in, like in and in. Like it was very impressive with how the recruitment went.
Interesting. Yeah, that's I mean, your data collection was shorter than your IRB.
It was.
Which
yeah.
It should never be like that, ever.
Right,
It should
right.
never be like that. So I was semi-familiar with citrulline before he came on. You know, there's some interesting data on that. So questions of, you thought there might be a synergistic effect, but what were your thoughts on citrulline prior to this as a standalone ergogenic aid?
Yeah, so just for people who might not know what citrulline is, it's like a non-essential amino acid found in super high concentrations of watermelon. So maybe Cassie, you have to have a whole bunch of watermelon to get the citrulline effects.
Got it.
I mean, that's really the same thing with like quercetin too with onions. Like you have to probably have a whole bunch to get the effects. So yeah, it's been used as an ergogenic aid to kind of help with mitochondrial biogenesis, maybe like oxygen consumption, kind of targeting nitric oxide. I was like, okay, great. So my interest has always been kind of the aerobic world. Like, hey, how can we target oxygen uptake? So when I kind of started digging into the research, like several lines of kind of research has been showing that, okay, they may both improve cardiovascular health, metabolism, oxidative stress, and even performance. So I was like, okay, there might be some sort of synergistic interaction. And what citrulline is also, there's been some research to show that it might target the NO pathway, so nitric oxide metabolite pathway. So I was like, okay. And then somehow, like even talking with Trisha, I was like, I think I want to combine these two and to see if there's any sort of effect of putting these together to see if it targets like oxygen consumption or like that NO pathway. So that's really what I did. But
And no one had done that before, right? I don't think there
no
was
one
any.
has done that before.
Okay. And
Nope,
that
That's
paper,
awesome.
was that paper just published?
So I just published it like a month ago. It just came out with within ISSN.
Oh, good. Okay. And so athletes want to know, what's the net? What's the bottom line? Should I take it? Should I not take it? And here's how I usually frame this is, can it possibly hurt performance? And if not, then should you just take it?
Right. Like I don't think it'll hurt performance. I mean, I think when it comes to supplement or it's like really in general, like if you're deficient, like especially with these trained cyclists, like it's like take it, see if it helps, see if it doesn't help. Like that's kind of my take on it. Like, but what I did find though, like, because I had 4 groups, which it was because I had about 13 or 14 individuals roughly, maybe in both in each group. So it was a pretty quality like number. So what I found is the supplement together didn't have any effect on time trial performance. Didn't really have any effect on average power, didn't really have any effect on heart rate or RPE or RER. But what was really cool that I did find is that the groups by itself, so citrulline by itself and even quercetin by itself, did improve oxygen consumption.
Now, let me ask you that. Okay, the time trial performance, was that done in the lab?
It was done in the lab. Yep.
So
Can you describe that? Like just because you said
Yeah.
it's a 20-kilometer test,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, so about 30 to 35 minutes on average for these trained cyclists to be able to, and it was like at maximal capacity. And they did this twice, so pre and post supplementation. So they will back up. They had a familiarization trial. They had their like a washout. They had a supplement for 4 weeks. Came in and they did another like basically pre-post time trial as well.
I mean, it's hard to get, because that's painful. For one thing, if you can do a time trial twice,
Well, it's max. She said max effort.
it's
Yeah.
painful, right? So and I assume they were volunteers. You didn't have to pay them to show up, which is always.
They were volunteers.
Yeah,
they were
so-
great volunteers.
Yes. And maybe endurance athletes have, well, I don't know if this is true. They might have more, and I'll probably get holy hell for this. Maybe their pain tolerance is just a lot greater than maybe people who just lift weights who, I don't want to come in and do a 1 RM squat or bench press or whatever. But still, a 20-kilometer time trial is, I mean, that's no joke, getting people to do that. Getting people to do it twice.
Yeah, they did 3 times.
3 times. They did a
Oh, wait,
familiarization.
Yeah, that's
Familiarization,
Yeah.
then pre and post. Yep.
that is no joke. So
But I feel like it's definitely a different kind of pain. So like I feel like endurance, like at least what I hear sometimes is like there's a difference between running through like the discomfort and like running through actual pain. So I feel like pain to me seems like injury, whereas like a sub-max test, it's uncomfortable, very uncomfortable, I would assume, on a bike, but maybe something they can like kind of push through.
Yeah, and they were able to bring their own bike in too. Like they had the comfort of their own bike. Like we attached it to a kicker. And I was like, hey, like if you want to listen to music, you can listen to music. If you want to watch Netflix, you can watch Netflix, but it has to be the same Netflix show every single time.
oh
Like,
my God. So I'm watching the same thing 3 times or whatever, twice.
right. I was like, just watch The Office 3 times. Like,
Oh my
great.
God.
So,
No.
I mean, a lot of them they were pretty compliant. Like I didn't have much dropouts because of lack of compliance, which was really great to see.
I mean, race pace pain is horridly painful,
It
Cassie.
is.
You gotta admit.
Oh, I admit.
Because I've seen Cassie in races where I don't know if she's actually
Okay. For
where
the
she's
record,
actually
though,
pushing herself.
I can't achieve like a true race pace on a paddleboard. It just doesn't. Well, there's a couple things that come into play. First off, it's my upper body. So like obviously I'm not as strong in my upper
Mhm.
body as I am in my lower body. But like also when I know that one, I have to go for 3 miles, I try to pace myself for that 3 miles. And then on the paddleboard, which is, I guess you could kind of like similar to cycling, like if there's wind, but like at least with cycling, like if there's wind, you can kind of like curl up a little bit. Like paddleboard, there's no like curling. Like you're just standing there and getting hit in the wind, and then there's waves and you're balancing, and it's really brutal. Like I would take an ultra endurance race over a 3 mile paddleboard race any day.
I agree with you.
All I
Yeah.
know, all I know is Cassie looks quite refreshed when she crosses the finish line in these paddling races. I'm
I
like,
like long leisure paddles where I can like talk, and then eventually the distance between us just keeps getting greater and greater. I keep talking and he keeps going. So
yeah, don't I know it? Don't I know it? Okay, so pragmatic question, dosing. If someone wants to take quercetin, citrulline together or separate?
Yeah, so I would say right now with quercetin, it may improve cycling time trial, like if they're interested in performance. Again, it really just depends on, okay, what's your goal? Like, what are you trying to accomplish with if you take a supplement? That's the biggest question that I kind of throw out to them. With quercetin, about 500 milligrams seems to do its job. So not a whole lot. It typically, like even the lesser dosages, like combined maybe with other antioxidants or even like nutrients, maybe fish oil or like another, polyphenol maybe, that may be more beneficial rather than just by itself. But I mean, like I said, I still did see quercetin by itself, which was great because a lot of other previous research has really just been kind of in contrast to what I found, which was cool that I found that.
Hey,
So
anything that's less than a gram is always doable. Now,
exactly.
however, isn't citrulline in the gram doses?
Yep. So about 3.5.
Yeah, that's a lot.
that's a
Yeah.
lot.
And that's
You have
why
to
I
have a
think,
whole lot.
yeah. Do you personally take either of these?
I take quercetin,
Not citrulline.
not really citrulline. Again, it's the, hey, what's feasible? And I mean,
Right.
I like quercetin just because like a lot of it has a lot of health effects these days. Like it's the research is still kind of being developed with quercetin, but I'm like, hey, it doesn't really hurt me. And it might have some of these like anti-inflammatory effects or antioxidant effects. I was like, okay, or even immune function. So that's kind of where I've been kind of shifting towards. I'm like, okay, quercetin doesn't hurt and it's feasible, and why not?
And the food with the highest concentration, if you want to get it through food,
I would say onions are right up there.
onions. So
So
yeah,
I did a quick Google, and it said that this, according from a PubMed reference, but I didn't look into it in depth, but it was 28 to 48 milligrams of quercetin per 100 grams of
yep,
onions.
that
But
sounds about right.
I don't know
what's
what the
100 grams?
average weight of an onion is.
100
Yeah, I
grams.
don't know the kind of the grams of that one either, but I think what I recall, like 2 to 4 pounds of onions per day.
Wow. Okay, that's a lot of onions.
So it's a lot of
That's a
onions.
lot.
Yeah, and no one's gonna take or eat that many onions. So,
Even for an onion
or
No.
lover, I don't think
And then
so.
I wonder if cooking too, like does cooking affect like the levels of it and stuff like that.
I'm
So
sure, absolutely. Yep, exactly. So that it definitely would cause gastrointestinal issues if you had that many
Yeah.
onions.
oh,
Not to mention,
I feel like you would emanate the like
yeah, you'd
onions too.
sweat
Like no one
onions.
would want to.
Yeah.
That would not be great.
Hey,
So
switching topics. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Cassie.
so do you have any interest in looking at maybe like how it could affect recovery? Because I know you looked at performance, but I know that
Yeah.
sometimes like some of these like antioxidant or these ones that have antioxidant properties do offer kind of like a good recovery benefit, which obviously in turn downstream
sure.
can affect performance.
Yeah, so that's a great question. I'm actually kind of doing some research with that right now. So that's kind of where I've been shifting. Rather than 20 kilometers, I'm shifting towards 75 kilometers.
Whoa.
I want a little bit more of a prolonged bout because my kind of reasoning behind that is like all these trained athletes that I'm kind of pulling into the lab, like 30 minutes, like really at a
Like
higher
nothing.
pace, like it's not really that much then because it was self-paced. It was like, all right, work at your maximal capacity, but this is also self-paced. I want your RPE to be like really above that 16 to 17 the entire time, like most of the entire time. And I'm finding like they already have a lot of those adaptations. So I was like, okay, well, let me look at a longer bout to see how this might okay, affect their baseline inflammation, their oxidative stress, like their recovery. So I'm actually shifting towards like, okay, let's look at the recovery period. So I'm looking at immediately post, I'm looking at an hour and a half post exercise and 75-kilometer post. So, or not 75, I'm sorry, 24 hours post exercise. So more blood draws, kind of more biomarkers that I'm kind of really interested in looking at to see, okay, does quercetin play more of effect rather in the recovery period rather than the performance, like the acute effect, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're talking really about a select group of people who could do that much exercise. I mean,
Exactly. So my recruitment's not going as great.
yeah.
But I'm still like, I still have about 16, 17 people in this current study that I'm working on right now. So I'm excited about that. And another thing I'm actually combining that with ginger. So that's another kind of random supplement that I'm looking at. So
Ginger. I think you know what? I take so many pills in the morning, I forget what I take. I actually think I take ginger.
ginger's great.
Sure. It's on my
But when
list
it
of
comes,
stuff.
yeah, but when it comes to looking at the aerobic metabolism kind of ginger, like, or recovery, I'm like, okay, there's more promise kind of looking at more of the recovery, in my perspective, than kind of just like, hey, acute doesn't increase
Right.
performance in that matter.
Question about, I think you wrote a paper on taurine.
I did.
And taurine, I mean, my introduction to taurine was a long time ago when I first drank Red Bull and it had taurine. I was like, huh, they put taurine in here. I wonder why. So
Yeah.
tell the audience what taurine is, what it possibly does as a standalone supplement, and if there's something you can combine it with, possibly.
Yep. So taurine, it's kind of like a sulfur kind of containing amino acid. It's a derivative of cysteine, which is another non-essential amino acid. It does account for like 50 to 60% of like your free amino acid pool. So a lot of taurine is actually found in animal proteins. So that's kind of a main source of taurine. But what a lot of energy drinks have been doing now is putting taurine into energy drinks combined with caffeine, for example. So,
Okay.
or like even like, or green tea, just straight like coffee. So it's been used as like potential ergogenic aid to maybe help improve athletic performance. And that is where another one of my interests was. I was like, okay, well, why? Like, why are they throwing taurine in all of these energy drinks? Like, what does it do? So again, it's just like, okay, I'm just going to zoom in on the most random supplements or the ingredients and let me run with it to see what happens.
Someone's got to do it though.
Exactly. It interested me though, because it has so many other roles that it's been targeting. So one of them, like, for example, kind of in modulating like fat metabolism, maybe inducing fibroblasts, like growth factors, kind of maybe playing more of a role in body energy balance. And it's found in like actually high concentration in the skeletal muscle, more in like the oxidative fiber types. So yeah, so it's been
Wait, so it's more in the type 1 fibers?
I've been found more in type 1 fibers and type 2 fibers.
Why is that?
Which
Okay,
to me, I was like, what? A lot of people are taking these energy drinks before they're doing all these like max reps or something like that. So
Cassie,
okay, you mentioned something. Well, yeah, because she mentioned like whole body energy balance, and
yeah.
Just a term that I haven't really heard before. So I was wondering if you could explain just the term.
Yeah, so that is really what I was kind of curious about. So something called these fibroblast growth factors, okay? They're produced in your adipose kind of tissue, and they play a role more with your energy balance of, hey, like your lipid metabolism.
Okay.
Yep. So, and they're kind of implicated, those growth factors, okay, in metabolic diseases. So taurine's kind of one of the roles has been targeting kind of, hey, we might be able to modulate and affect these fibroblast growth factors to help improve your lipid metabolism or maybe help improve glucose uptake. So that was one kind of role that taurine wanted to kind of do its job on.
Well, what does it do? What's the dosing? Let's say if the goal is, if someone wants to experiment, and then let's face it, my entire life has just been one big experiment on myself. So if I just want to experiment on taurine, what would be the daily dosing, and what would it affect the most? Would it be more of the aerobic type, exercises or power endurance stuff, or?
Yep. So really more in like the exercise performance kind of realm, about 500,000 milligrams. So these dosages
Okay.
are kind of not terrible, but for more like exercise performance or maybe even recovery, higher dosages, probably 1 to 3 grams. So there's been
Doable.
super high dosages, like with taurine, like even like greater than 5 grams per day and not really much effect on aerobic performance. Um, so it's appears to be safer with higher dosages, but they're really unclear the effects on performance. But of what I saw kind of with that taurine review paper, you need to have more of a chronic dosage, like that 6 to 21 days to maybe see more of an effect. And it seems maybe a little bit more promising, put in question mark on there, with the aerobic kind of performance rather than like anaerobic.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, what is
So
go ahead, Cassie.
do the people that follow the carnivore diet, do they have to supplement with taurine if they're just eating nothing but meat and that's where it's found in high concentrations? Or
I mean, they're going to get that taurine, they're going to get taurine in their animal products.
and then you probably combine it with their energy drinks and a supplement, maybe they'll be
Exactly.
really
Yeah. So,
saturated.
right. And it generally appears to be safe, like not super toxic or with any crazy adverse effects. But again, like that's where it's like, okay, this may be very unclear in performance. So it's like, do you really even need to take it? Like, so.
Do you think that's why they like the potential effects on lipid metabolism is maybe why they combine it with the caffeine?
For sure. Absolutely. I think that's definitely a great question. Yep. And I think another one that I've been kind of finding, like with taurine, it's like its effect on calcium regulation, which was like really interesting, like the calcium kind of handling. Maybe taurine kind of helps with the calcium release. So again, that mechanism is kind of unclear, but that's yeah, that research has really only been performed in animals. So I'd be curious to see how that might actually carry over to human research.
Does beta-alanine consumption affect taurine levels?
That's an excellent question. I'm sure it does, maybe with some sort of interaction, but I mean, that would definitely be something worth exploring. I think beta-alanine, yeah, it's great.
Is that one of your supplements that you take?
It's not. Nope. Nope, it is not. Not that one.
Well, since we're on that topic, what do you take, assuming your goal is to improve performance, or maybe your goal is just to have fun running?
Yeah, all the above. But
Okay.
I mean, really what like people ask, like a lot of my students ask me this too. Like, I don't think supplements are really necessary if you have a whole balanced diet. So like I really focus on like, okay, my fruits, my veggies, like making sure I have like an actual nutritious meal, like, making sure I have enough nutrients in my day to day. And if I'm doing like any sort of crazy long, prolonged bouts, which I have a tendency to do sometimes,
But how long is prolonged?
well, I'm kind of going for like over 20 hours
What? Wait,
on feet in the next year or so. So
wait, 20 hours of running?
I'm running, yeah.
So are you doing one of the races where, because like I know they have like different kind of like setups for the ultra marathons where you
Yeah.
just sometimes they have like a distance, or sometimes like in the second type of race I hate where they just have like a time and it's just how many miles you can log in 20 hours or whatever the time set
Yep.
is.
So a little bit of both.
Okay.
So yeah, I have like 100K coming up. I signed up for my first 100-mile race next year. So
Wait, where's this? Where's the 100-mile race?
New River Gorge in West Virginia.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's that
Listen, if you
crazy
ever
one.
want to go with me out to Arizona, I've always wanted to do it. I think it's the javelin race, but it's done on Halloween and people wear like costumes and it's done
Fun.
obviously in the evening because it's in Arizona. So like the daytime's like super hot, but it is an
Yeah.
ultra marathon and like I've always wanted to go. I just can't find anyone to go with me.
Wait, how far is it, Cass?
There's different ones. There's I think a 50K, a 70K. I don't think there's a 100K.
Oh, those are good distances.
So yeah.
Super fun. Yeah,
Well,
just look it up.
the one you need to do, Jennifer, to show what a total badass you are is the
Bad water.
Bad water.
No, there's one that's badder than Badwater. What's the
What?
one where they go through like the mountains? and a woman just won it. A woman just won it for the first time, I think, this past year. She's like the first, and not many people don't even cross the finish line. I'll find it out for us.
Is that the
Okay.
Western States 100?
Maybe it's something very challenging.
Might be, that sounds familiar.
Wow.
Might be the Western States. But
I mean, you got to be a little nutty to do ultras. I mean, a little bit.
I mean, that's honestly what I tell my students is like, if you're going to do these crazy events, like nutrition is key. Like you have to fine tune your nutrition. You have to, like, I'm not saying you have to supplement, but I mean, I really capitalize on a lot of like my anti-inflammatory, like antioxidant kind of like food sources, just so, and like also to help my gut out in these races too. So that's kind of where I've been semi okay like in them.
Yeah, I would imagine a big part of it is particularly just maintaining weight, because you're expending so much energy training.
Oh yeah.
that
Oh yeah.
I would think body weight maintenance is just a hard thing, because it's hard to eat enough food unless you eat a lot of calorically dense food.
Well, that's where like the junk food comes in handy.
So that is another great thing of ultra running that I love is I love my Swedish fish and my Sour Patch Kids.
Oh, it gives you an excuse to eat really whatever you want if you're expending that much. So
Exactly.
how many miles or hours per week would it take for you to train for that event?
So it depends on what season you're kind of in. And depends on like how far out. Like I have a race in a couple of weeks. Like, I mean, it's
how
out.
far?
So I mean 50, 60 mile weeks roughly, and maybe peak at 70 miles. Just again, it depends on your kind of goals of it. And it depends on how far out you are. But yeah, you definitely need to eat a lot.
And you're not injured?
Get fit.
So that's a great question.
I
I'm not
mean-
saying I'm perfect, like within these injuries. Well, like I'm definitely dealing with some injuries for sure. But I think that's also what I love about ultra running or any sort of ultra sports. It's like you really have to be deliberate with taking care of yourself. Like not only just the nutritional side of things, but strength training is key. Like I often sometimes fail in this, but like 2-3 times a week, you got to maintain that strength. You've got to maintain the lean body mass. Like in rehab, like I'm sitting on a big bouncy ball right now to help with my back, like.
But that back is injured from cycling.
Exactly. Right.
That's
Right.
funny.
I mean, also just like with my hip alignment too, it helps with that. So
Right.
yeah.
It's just better. It's more fun than sitting in a regular chair too. I sat in one for a very long time, so I
And
think
it breaks
they're more
down
fun.
walls when students come in too. And they're like, you're sitting on a big ball. I'm like, welcome.
Okay, so I looked it up and it's the Barkley race.
Oh
It
my
is
gosh.
5 grueling loops of 20 miles each, so a total of 100 miles. They have 60 hours to finish. They don't announce the race until the day of, and so far to date, and I don't know when the original date was, only 17 racers have actually completed. And I believe the way that they start the race is they blow some like horn, and so you have to like hear the horn in the distance or whatever to know that the race is starting.
Yeah,
See, there's so many cool things you can do with ultra marathons. They're just way better than regular running.
Yep, that race is like one of the most toughest, most like, in my opinion, mysterious races in the world, because you have to have some sort of navigation
you have to know
skills
someone
or navigation skills to get to where you need to go. 60 hours to complete that. We actually have one person who completed it from Boone, and he runs locally. So it was really cool. Like, but yeah, that race is insane. Like,
I would need a crew to tell me where to go because I don't even know my left from right half the time.
I totally agree with you.
Those are a little crazy. Well, Jennifer, we're running out of time. I want to be respectful of your time. So there was just a couple more questions. One, current projects you're working on and where you will be if you're presenting any new data. And also just advice for graduate students who will be earning their PhD, the whole job, interviewing for a job. Any advice on that?
Yeah, so I'll kind of start with my current projects right now. So kind of looking at ginger kind of by itself, like on immune function after that 75-kilometer like cycling bout. I'm kind of emphasizing the recovery kind of stages now. And then that's one project. Another one I'm going to be looking at, so ginger and quercetin for an ultra marathon. I'm kind of tapping more into the ultra marathon running kind of world. And then this is kind of another side fun project that I have going on since I'm kind of in the ultra world, is kind of looking at creatine, kind of looking at cognitive effects and also recovery. So I'm really interested maybe, okay, how does creatine maybe affect like HRV or recovery performance? So those are a couple of side projects I have going on, and I'm still never going to leave the quercetin world, I don't think.
You will be the quercetin expert.
I love quercetin. I think there's a lot more to be done with it. And I think there's promise with quercetin. And I want to continue to dig into how it might affect certain populations or even like dosing or even protocols. So hopefully one of these days, kind of looking at quercetin in like menopausal women, kind of shifting more, hey, how does this maybe affect body composition or bone mineral density? So I'm kind of shifting a little bit with kind of, I guess, hey, where does funding kind of want to go with this? Kind of following the funding a little bit. So
that helps. The funding helps.
Exactly. So I got a couple of side projects, which I'm super excited about, a lot of them. What was one of your other questions for you? You said for grad students.
Oh yeah.
Oh, for post PhD.
Yeah, like advice on interviewing. How many should they apply for? And things like that. Because a lot of them, I think a lot of it is, and I don't know how it worked out for you, but a lot of it is how you fit within a program versus who's best qualified, and that seems counterintuitive.
Exactly.
But I think a lot of it is just fit.
Yeah, I think a big thing is like I applied to so many schools,
How many?
A bunch of them, probably 6 or 7.
Well, that's not bad.
So I applied like all over the US. Like I wanted to go out west. I wanted to kind of, hey, get more into, the mountainous research, like get into the field. But you're exactly right. Like I think it depends. Like it's really about, okay, where do you fit within the program? Like your connections, your collaborations, like where can you continue to not just build research, but also build yourself and build relationships? Like I'm all for, hey, let's build relationships and like, how can you impact the community? So that's a big question that I'm like, what impact do you think you can have on this community or in this university or like this, like focus group? Like my interest is cyclists and runners. So I was like, this population is huge. And like, I've been able to grow my cycling research pretty fast because of the community that I've been building. So it really it really kind of goes back into finding people, forming connections and continuing to build connections within that. So as far as like PhD, like students, it's keep reaching out, like staying resilient, like and understanding like there is not a perfect school, but there is a school that can really like, again, help you be the best version of yourself. That's kind of what I tell my students.
Yeah, there's definitely not a perfect school. I think I think a lot are always looking for the perfect school or the one that has, the most resources to do research. And a lot of times it's just, where are you happiest? I mean,
exactly. Where can you like not like I have such a great, like when people say like finding like work-life balance, like I like to kind of argue with that one a little bit. It's like, where can you have more of a life than work? And where can you continue to grow your life and like who you are as a person? So like when I'm not researching or teaching, I'm in the woods and that's what I do.
Hey, it's not bad to hang out in the woods. I mean, Cassie,
Not at all.
We hang out on the water. Well, I hang out on the water. You don't as much anymore, Cassie.
Well, I do, but just not on a paddleboard.
No, that's true. I guess once your little one gets a little bigger, you can start paddling again with me. So
I know, I was really hoping we could just tie a couple like floaties to his car seat and drag him in the water, but I don't think that's gonna work.
Okay, one more. Are you going to be giving a talk anywhere soon, Jennifer, or what are your plans for that?
Hopefully so. So I think at ISSN, kind of talking with Chad Kurtz a little bit about that. Who knows what that conversation will be, but hopefully it might be it probably will be along the lines of quercetin, or maybe even how might creatine affect like the ultra endurance kind of world. So probably one of those.
Well, you know what? The beauty of that is no one else covers that demographic.
Right.
I don't, in fact, I'm thinking, Cassie, does anyone do ultra stuff? I don't think anybody does.
Who, I can't think of her name. She has blonde hair. She's shorter. I think she just graduated. Alyssa does ultra marathons.
Yeah, she does. She's wonderful. I don't know. Like, I know she was working on
I don't know if
her
she's done research.
Yeah, she doesn't do research in it, I don't think.
No, but I know that she like does them herself. So I would assume that maybe she knows or would do it. I just feel like you kind of gravitate sometimes, if you can, towards like what you do in your life, because
yeah. I know she was looking at like metabolic flexibility, because we did cross paths when I was at University of Georgia with her. She was like 2 or 3 years ahead of me. And I'm not sure if she's still working on her postdoc, but that was kind of where she landed. I don't know entirely what research she's doing right now, but like, yeah, there's a lot of promise with ultra, and also a lot of patience and resilience that we need more researchers in that field. So
yeah, because some of the stuff like that you hear, if you read some of the stories, like these guys, they talk about like laying in a puddle and taking a nap for like 2 minutes, and they're like hallucinating from being up for so long, and then they go back to running and they just finish it like it's nothing. I mean, It's just one of those things that are, I don't know, it's very interesting, and it just kind of speaks to, it's obviously a physical thing, but it's also, there's a huge mental aspect, I think, that goes into ultra marathons to kind of push past the physical limits that people have.
Exactly. So let's target that cognitive ability.
Yeah.
So like, that's where my question is like, okay, how can we kind of increase that cognitive maybe focus of ultra marathon? I mean, that's really what it is. Like, I know a lot of people who finish hundreds, and it's really their mental like fortitude that's like carried them through, and in nutrition.
Like, how about like the emotions that you feel?
Oh yeah.
Just go up and down.
Oh yeah.
That actually, have you met our friend Victoria Burgess? She's the one that paddled from Cuba to Florida. It took her 27 hours.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And so when she was training for it, I helped her with her nutrition, but really I said, your basic goal is to eat as much as you can while you paddle from Cuba to Florida, because if your brain goes, once your brain's tired, you're done. And
exactly.
There's too much skill involved in paddling in the ocean that you have to be completely focused. But she has some good stories. I mean, if you meet her at ISSN, she always has funny stories to tell about, paddling when it's pitch black, how sometimes you just want to quit. And training for it is like, you just got to paddle a lot of hours.
Exactly.
It's insane.
Yeah, it's an eating competition. And that's exactly what it's an eating competition. I was just at a 100-mile race over the weekend, and I wasn't racing, but I was supporting a friend, and it's an eating competition for sure. It's like, how much can you get in, and while sustaining your performance at a high level? So
that's the beauty of doing ultra endurance events. You can eat whatever you want.
Exactly.
Well, hey, Jennifer, Dr. Kurtz, hey, thank you for being on Sports Science Dudes. Cassie, thank you for being a great co-host. And I'll have this posted hopefully within 24 to 48 hours.
Cool.
So, hey, keep up the good work. No one's doing this ultra stuff. I find it super fascinating. I'm going to stick to like 3 and 6 mile races. Once I get
that's still great.
But
thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. It's been a great time.
Thank you for your time, and hopefully we will see you in Delray Beach, ISSN.
Yeah,
I will be there. Looking forward to it.
All right, thanks.
Bye.
Bye.